Hello to you. We're live from Tel Aviv in Israel. This is BBC News. The conflict in the Middle East intensifies. Israel launches a new wave of simultaneous strikes in Tehran and Beirut overnight and says it's sending ground troops into Lebanon. The US and Israel say they have destroyed Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard's command and control facilities. Iran, however, continues to retaliate. 2 drones hit the US Embassy in Saudi Arabia. The American base in Bahrain comes under fire too. Explosions are heard in Qatar, Oman, the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait. Germany and France join Greece to send military support to Cyprus after the British airbase there comes under drone fire. And stranded in the Gulf. As limited flights resume from Dubai and Abu Dhabi, tens of thousands of passengers are still unable to leave, as much of the airspace remains closed. Hello to you from Tel Aviv, from where Israel says it is again launching simultaneous strikes on the Lebanese capital Beirut and the Iranian capital Tehran. Now, these pictures show the aftermath of those strikes. In Beirut, Israel says it's been hitting Hezbollah strongholds in the south of the city. Hezbollah says it's targeted 3 Israeli bases in response. Iran has been striking back, however, right across the region. The US State Department says American citizens should leave much of the Middle East. The Iranian Red Crescent says more than 780 people have been killed so far in the war, and America says 6 of its service members are now known to have died, while 12 people have lost their lives in Israel. We're going to show you pictures from Beirut, live pictures there at the moment. Israel's defense minister has told troops to take control of new positions in Lebanon, and that involves boots on the ground. Here in Tel Aviv, I can tell you that it's actually been a little bit quiet throughout the day. We've only had 2 air raid sirens go off, suggesting we need to get down to the bunker here at our position, and one of those alerts was in the last few minutes, so that's why we've put our flak jackets on just in case. But at the moment it seems things have calmed down a little bit, certainly compared to Saturday and Sunday when we were here, when it seemed as if the air raid sirens were going off every 5-10 minutes or so. It really was an unnerving experience. So one can only imagine what it's like for people down there, here in Tel Aviv and across Israel, but also, of course, those Iranians who are having to deal with the constant bombardments that are coming from the United States and from Israel, certainly over the last 2-3 days, and heavily so overnight. Over the next few minutes, we're going to be talking to our correspondents right across the region, covering the war, and speak to our team of specialists. And joining me first is Lena Sinjab, who is live in Beirut for us. Lena, first of all, this is a front in the war that has just opened up, and now Israeli troops have gone in on the ground. Just tell us what's happening where you are.
Well, there hasn't been any confirmation yet from the Lebanese government about any boots on the ground by the Israelis or movement in the south. However, the situation is very volatile. Airstrikes continued on south of Beirut, on southern Lebanon, and while the Israelis are attacking targets of Hezbollah is still also launching rockets into northern Israel. The whole situation was prompted when Hezbollah started the attack on Israel, saying it is in retaliation for the killing of the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei. But that prompted reaction from the Israelis, which they've warned about, and they said if Hezbollah is going to be involved in this war, the reaction will be strong and will not be limited. The Lebanese government is acting swiftly to de-escalate. They've announced that Hezbollah is banned from any military or security activities, and they're calling on de-escalation to save the country the consequences of this war, and hopefully not to have it a prolonged one like what Lebanon lived in 2024, when Israel eliminated the leadership of Hezbollah and destroyed much of the south of Lebanon and south of Beirut. Families are fleeing in thousands. They're stranded just by where I'm standing by the Corniche, by the seaside. There are families who are there with their mattresses and belongings, waiting to see where to go. But it's not clear if they're going to be able to go back home anytime soon. Hezbollah is adamant to keep involving in this war. The Israelis are responding fiercely, and the ones who are paying the price are the Lebanese people and this country that was hoping to get out on its feet again, build its economy and open up to the world, but it's been dragged again into a war that has nothing to do with it, simply because of a decision taken by Hezbollah.
Indeed, Lena. No confirmation then that Israeli ground troops are actually there where you are, heading into southern Lebanon. But it was inevitable, wasn't it, perhaps, given that there would be a strike on Iran, that its proxies would potentially respond and that Hezbollah would launch some sort of attack on Israeli sites?
Well, that's what everyone here was hoping not to happen, especially that throughout the past year, after the ceasefire started in Lebanon, following the war with Israel, there were constant attacks by Israeli forces on targets in Lebanon, whether in south of Beirut or the south of the country, targeting Hezbollah. And Hezbollah did not respond to any of these attacks throughout this year. And that's exactly what's making people furious and angry, that some even called Hezbollah as treason and is doing assassination for itself and for the country by responding to a war that is launched against Iran. Of course, Hezbollah, who was established in the 80s by the Iranians, funded and trained by the Iranians, they put themselves in alliance with the Iranian supreme leaders and Iranian interests, and that's what's making people very angry here. They were hoping, and there were lots of talks and efforts to get Lebanon away from this war, but their bets failed because Hezbollah, people say, have failed the country and have failed its own community, because they are the ones who are paying the price. They are the ones whose homes and villages have been destroyed, and they are the ones who are again up on the streets, seeking shelter, seeking safety, using everything they have without anyone able to support them.
Indeed. All right, Lena, thank you for that. Lena Sinjab there, live in Beirut. We're going to cross now to northern Israel, and of course, it's that part of this country that is in the line of fire of Hezbollah rockets coming over the border. And Lucy Williamson is there for us now. Lucy, we know that there were attacks on Haifa yesterday after this war began over the weekend. What's the latest now?
Well, yeah, Clive, as you said, Hezbollah has been sending rockets and drones across the border towards Haifa. The group said it targeted 3 Israeli military sites today. I'm standing in front of a private house somewhere close to that northern border with a big hole in the front of the house. It's not, the police teams haven't finished their investigations here, but the working assumption is that this is also the result of some kind of attack from Hezbollah. And I can tell you that this second front that Israel is now fighting on has been pretty active here this morning. Several rounds of outgoing artillery fire from the Israeli forces. And I think, as you mentioned in the introduction as well, the defense minister confirming that the Israeli army has been authorized to spread out from the 5 points that it occupied during the ceasefire into other areas near the border to prevent exactly this kind of fire.
So to be clear then, Lucy, no Israeli troops have crossed the border. They've fanned out, expanded their sort of area of operations along the border, but there's no suggestion of an incursion.
That's not quite what we're hearing. I mean, the Israeli army has said that extra forces have been sent across the border into Lebanon. The Israeli army already held 5 positions along that border on the Lebanese side as a result of the ceasefire in 2024. And what we're hearing now is that the expansion out from those points has already begun, and the defense minister says that he's authorizing soldiers to seize strategic areas to prevent Hezbollah firing across the border. During the last war, Israel evacuated tens of thousands of people from the communities along this border, and many of them have only just been moving back in the last month and year or so since the ceasefire. The Israeli government has said they're not going to evacuate these communities again, even despite the opening of this new frontier. And the problem for civilians living along this side of the border is, where do they go now? Hezbollah has been pushed back somewhat from the border, and if they move anywhere else in the country, they're facing missile attacks from Iran.
Yeah, that's interesting. Lina Sinjab in Beirut was talking about the enormous amount of anger that there is among local people about the fact that Hezbollah has got involved in this fight. Now, although for some observers it might have felt as if that was inevitable, for the civilians on the other side, on the Israeli side, they're being told that there's nowhere really that they can be evacuated to, that there's nowhere where they can get decent shelter.
I think there are some people who are privately deciding to leave. We've spoken to a few people whose family members have made that decision, but the government as a whole has decided not to evacuate en masse the communities here. And they found themselves slightly in a corner last time, having evacuated the communities, then to try and move them back in to rebuild those communities. So people here do feel safer. The risk assessment has changed. The operations, I don't know if you can hear that behind me, there's an outgoing fire, I think is happening. The risk assessment here has changed. They feel the Israeli army is much more present, has pushed back Hezbollah to some degree. But one man I was talking to who lives right up close to the border yesterday, he pointed out a Lebanese village, largely destroyed now, but a Lebanese village just 3 kilometers away from his house, and said Hezbollah was still in that village, and the end of the ceasefire had real consequences for him.
Of course. All right. Lucy, thank you. Lucy Williamson there reporting for us live in northern Israel. There have been some strong words from President Donald Trump today, criticising Sir Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister. We're going to talk to our political correspondent, Damien Grammaticus, who's at Westminster. Damien, the President lauding the French, apparently, and criticising the British, despite the special relationship.
Yes, this is in an interview with a couple of UK newspapers in the last 24 hours, Clive. And yeah, the President clearly pretty irritated that the UK did not give permission for the US to use bases here in England at RAF Fairford and Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean when it first launched its initial strikes on Iran. And in those comments, President Trump saying that the UK had not been helpful. In contrast, he said, to countries like France. He said it was sad to see that the relationship between the UK and the US is obviously not what it was. It's a different kind of relationship than we had before. So clearly frustrated, I think. But we heard Keir Starmer very clearly saying in Parliament yesterday, giving his rationale for that decision. And in that, what he said was that the UK had learnt lessons from before, the Iraq war before, that there needed to be two conditions met. One was that the basis for any action had to be lawful, and two, that was that there was a plan for what happened up following military strikes. And on both those counts, the implication is the UK was not satisfied, although Keir Starmer then went on to say that following the Iranian retaliation, or Iranian strikes against countries all around the Gulf, the UK had decided that it was right that defensive action could be taken using UK bases to take out Iranian missiles, missile launchers, to protect UK bases, UK citizens, Gulf allies.
Yeah, I mean, Damien, is it clear now to many people at Westminster that the UK government simply did not believe that going to war was legal in the manner that Israel and America have prosecuted the conflict? Is there a sense that the UK would have been joining an illegal act, in the view of some, of aggression?
Well, it's a question that many are asking and has been put directly, Clive, to UK ministers this morning, coming out on the airwaves. And the Prime Minister's Chief Secretary, Darren Jones, he was questioned and he kind of sidestepped that. He simply said that the UK did not take part in those initial strikes. But you kind of, if you read between the lines, I think, what Keir Starmer was saying yesterday to Parliament was very clear. He said, we do not think that you can achieve regime change. We do not believe in regime change from the skies. And then he laid out those lessons he thought that were important. And on that basis, it seems, that's the basis he took for not allowing the use of UK bases in the start. So it would imply that that's what Keir Starmer thinks. And it seems that he was saying, Keir Starmer was saying, that he was judging things on the basing British interests first, putting British interests at the heart of his decision. And according to those tests, those tests were not met.
Okay, Damien, thank you. Damien Grammaticus, our political correspondent live at Westminster. We're going to talk now to Gahanche Habibazad from the BBC Persian service, which is the Persian language service of BBC News. It's used by 24 million people around the world. The majority of these are in Iran, despite being blocked and routinely jammed by the Iranian authorities. What reports are we getting from inside Iran? And could you try to sum up the mood of the people there who have been under bombardment for such a sustained period of time?
It's very difficult to know exactly what's going on inside Iran because of the internet outage, but some people managed to connect momentarily to tell the outside world about what's going on. From what I've heard today, Isfahan has been the center of the attacks, apparently, from what I'm hearing. Tehran has been calmer than yesterday, and it seems like the strikes weren't that much as yesterday. I've heard that children are really afraid of what's going on and how the situation is unfolding, but some people, some anti-establishment ones that I've been talking to, are cheerful about some of the strikes, especially the strike that happened on Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And so far, Iran's Red Crescent Society has said that 787 people have been killed. They haven't made a distinction between civilians and the officials and military officials that have been killed during the strikes. And I've also heard from Tehran that the prices for some essentials have increased, and some of them are stocking up because they don't know how long the war is going to continue.
We've actually been trying to put together a film looking at how civilians on this side of the border, Gonche, are coping with the continual airstrikes and air raid sirens and so on, alongside how the Iranian people are dealing with this. Sounds like a basic question, but I'd quite like to know it. I mean, are there bomb shelters? Are there warning sirens? The basic infrastructure for a community under attack. Are any of those in place in Iran? Are people able to try to find some kind of shelter, particularly given the intense bombing campaign from two incredibly armed adversaries of Iran, which would be the United States and Israel?
That was something that so many that I talked to before the war were complaining about not having any bunkers or anything that they could shelter in. Iranian officials had said that some parking lots were ready for people to take shelter in, but we didn't see any reports or anything of it. They have asked people to stay at home and just be there, but at the same time, like some of these infrastructures, like the bases, are located where nearby people's houses as well. We have seen some destructions to the hospitals. We have verified videos of that, although Israel's defense forces has said that they have also seen reports of a partial damage to a hospital in Tehran, Gandhi Hospital, but they said that they're not targeting hospitals. And this is the situation right now. People are staying at home and watching to see what will happen. I have seen that some people have said that their windows were shattered, that their walls have been like rattling and their houses have been rattling. And this has been the situation. And they can hear fighter jets just passing through their heads like when they're at home.
I suppose that, to a degree, explains some of the high levels of casualties. If the basic infrastructure to survive an onslaught, frankly, isn't there, and the Iranian authorities don't seem to be providing that kind of safeguard, those kinds of safeguards for citizens. A final question, Gonchi. I mean, we've no idea how long this conflict is going to go on for. Is there a sense from ordinary Iranians that this really could end up leading to regime change, or that ultimately the same people who have not been acting in the interests of the majority of the population may end up still being in charge once all this is over?
We don't know yet how it's going to end, and if the current situation is going to stay in power, if the next supreme leader, when is he going to be elected, and what's going to be the process like? Because we heard from Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi, who said maybe in the next day or two, like some days ago, we heard from him that the next supreme leader is going to be elected. Nothing from that. And there are some missing officials. Some of the officials haven't appeared since the war broke out, and we don't know where they are or what's the situation with them. At the same time, we have seen some pro-establishment people after the death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, that they came to the streets, were mourning as well, some were cheerful. And some of the ordinary people in Iran have told me that the death of Supreme Leader has widened the gap that was already there between those who support the establishment and those who are against it. So we don't know how much the gap is going to continue to widen.